Welcome to the Coach's Carousel, where we talk all things athletics from the front office to the field. My name is Gus St. Fort, and I'll be your host as we take this journey into athletics together. Today's show is definitely going to be a treat. Entering the hot seat today is another guest who truly represents what it means to be on the Coach's Carousel. Getting his start as an athlete and student coach at the Division III level in the ODAC at Guilford College, then moving up to the Division I level, spent 2 seasons with North Carolina Central University as both a graduate manager and director of basketball operations, which then he followed up with stops at Seattle University, Williams College, where he coached in a Division III Final Four in 2017, and then Dartmouth College, where he coached a number of all Ivy League players. The 2018 NABC 30 Under 30 Coaches Team honoree is widely known for his prowess in global recruiting and was also named to Silver Wave Media's most impactful mid-major Division I assistant coaches list twice in his career. He currently serves as an assistant coach at Loyola University Chicago. Without further ado, please welcome Justin Bradley. Justin, how are you doing today?
Man, I was listening to that stuff like, man, who's he talking about? But no, I'm excited to be here. I'm thankful, you asked me to get on here, and I'm happy to share with you any parts of my journey.
Awesome. And obviously, I wanted to talk about your background because, you have an extensive one. So that's why I got into it. It's a little bit of a mouthful, but we got through it.
Making
So,
me feel old, man.
but just, want to get right into it. Obviously, I know you're from North Carolina. After doing some research, you played at Ravenscroft School and Raleigh, and it seemed like you guys had a lot of success. So can you just get into, your upbringing and, how you decided, basketball was something that you really wanted to, you know, get involved in?
Yeah, so I was actually born in New York City. And but I spent a lot of time. Obviously, I did 1 year middle school, high school, college. My first job was in North Carolina, so both places are really home to me. But obviously, growing up in New York, like basketball is the sport. Like there aren't a lot of football fields around. It gets too cold to play a lot of the outdoor other sports. And when you grow up in New York City, you're a fan or you're playing. So, for me, and what that looked like was you don't grow up going to, now where I live and coaching, it's you go to basketball camps and you go to 10 camps if you can. Everyone has a trainer. Like I didn't have any of that. Like I don't think I went to any camps, and I definitely didn't have a trainer, but you just go to the park at 8 a.m. and hope you get picked on a team, or and if you don't, you're on the side court like playing one-on-one. And that's your coaching, and that's real life coaching, because sometimes when you're out there as a 10-year-old, you're playing against 15-year-olds or 20-year-olds, and you learn physicality, you learn how to compete, you learn how to get picked, you learn how to, maybe you're not I think you learn early, like you're not the guy to score. And if I want to play, I got to do other things. So,
Right.
that was really helpful for me. And then obviously when I transitioned to North Carolina, like again, hoop state, as they call it now, it's, another state that just loves basketball. And, obviously a lot of good players come out of there. And, I just kind of carried it on through my high school, college, and, obviously professional journey.
Awesome. Okay. And so obviously you were a Division III player, and then you made that transition from, athlete to student coach. Can you just talk a little bit about what that looked like for you?
Yeah, I didn't think I was a Division III player. I thought I was a Division I player, but
We all do.
I was humbled. So yeah, it was great for me. Like, I played on a really good high school team. So as you mentioned, Ravenscroft, we had, I think at that time, 7 guys ended up playing Division I. And we had some All-Americans. We had some, guy play at Duke, guy play at Wake Forest, a guy play at Chapel Hill. So, had a lot of good teammates. And they went on to have great careers. But for me, my journey was a little different. Like, I chose to go to Guilford College. They had just come off a Final Four, Division III, and then I was like, okay, I want to continue winning. I want to go to a place, if it was somewhat close to home, a place where I can play, a place where I can be happy academically, and it just kind of checked a lot of boxes for me. So, when I'm recruiting now, I try to tell guys to find a place that's gonna, have your own list of what you want out of a place. And, not every place is gonna check every single box, but if they check 8 out of 10, like that's probably the place for you. And the coaches did a great job recruiting me. I had a great visit, and we won a lot of games. It was a
Awesome.
good decision.
Yeah, and I saw obviously your freshman year, making it to the Final Four.
Yeah.
That's the best way to get into college or
Yeah,
to
and what's funny
that
about
transition.
that year was we lost to Williams in the Final Four. So that was kinda like the start of it all. It was like,
Right.
"Where's the school Williams from?" Like, and they beat our butt. So I learned quickly.
And so, obviously I want to get into Williams, a little bit further down the line. But first, just, can you talk a little bit about that transition you made from, obviously being at the Division 3 level, being a player, being a student, and then obviously you get to North Carolina, a Central, and now you're on the coaching side. Can you
Yeah.
talk a little bit about that transition?
Yeah, it was a quick one. I think I was, when I was a senior, I wasn't one of those coaches that, or I'm not one of those coaches that knew they wanted to coach, from the time they were born, or, I don't have a family of coaches. And so it's just kind of something, an injury in college, which, I was listening to your other episode with Aaron, like similar to him, but injury in college really, I was still helping out the team. And that's when I transitioned to that student assistance because I had stress fractures. I was like, man, what am I going to do? I've never not been a basketball player. But the coach, Coach Palumbo, asked me to, hey, you want to help out with the team? And it's funny because at first I said no. I was like, no, I'm done with this. I don't want to be around. I'm unhappy. And that probably like a week or two went by, and then I finally say yes, which was the best thing for me. So, and that wasn't to my, you know, midway through my junior season. So that's when I caught the coaching bug. And I've always been a guy that's, gonna come early, stay late, gonna, hey, let's go get some shots up in the gym. I've always been that guy as a player, but it was a natural transition as a coach. And then I did what everyone else does. Like I was sending out emails. I was sending at that time handwritten notes. So people still do that. Like I was sending notes. I was sending emails. I was, trying to network as much as I can. I remember I spent my like senior spring break of college. Like most people were trying to go to the beach or vacation. Like I went to the Final Four in Atlanta, and I didn't know what I was doing. I was just walking around thinking that was, a job was going to fall in my hands. So, and then my middle school coach was Lavelle Moten. And so I went to him asking for advice, asking for help. And he was, basically at the end of the meeting, I was like, hey, I've applied to all these jobs, and what should I do? Should I be a GA? Should I be a Division 3 assistant coach? Like, I don't know what to do. He was like, what about if you come work for me? And um, I was like, as what? And he's like, we'll figure it out. I'll call you next week. We're going on vacation. So, and then a week later, I was a graduate assistant. And then 2 days later, I was a director of operations my first year out. So I was really thankful, really lucky. Wasn't making any money, but uh, it was a good opportunity for me. And it was hard because it was, months before I had been, yeah, student assistant, kind of volunteering, helping out, doing it on like my time, my terms. But, once you're out there and you're working for a Division 1 program for a successful coach like Lavelle Moten, like it was real. And I learned a lot. And the assistants I worked with, and obviously from him, like they set me up for success today.
Awesome. And, I think talking to a lot of GAs, um, you hear a lot of similar stories about, I'm eating peanut butter and jelly every night,
Mm.
and we're trying to figure it out.
I'm still eating peanut butter and jelly, man. Yeah.
I am too, but
Hey, that ain't
uh,
never going anywhere.
right.
So,
Can you talk a little bit about, obviously, as a Dobo graduate manager at North Carolina Central, you were juggling a lot. You were doing school, obviously you're working, with the team all the time. Can you just talk about how you juggled all that and any tips for how people can do that?
Yeah, I think just it was a lot. It was so my schedule was sorry. I usually get in the office about 8 a.m. because that's when I was told to be a good assistant, like you need to be there 8 a.m. Be there 8 a.m. and then I'd work all day with my job, and then I go to class at nighttime from 6 to 9 p.m. and then I'd go back to the office because there was still like one of the assistants I worked with. His name is Brian Burke, who ended up becoming a Division I head coach. He's at Ole Miss now. Um, he would be like, "This is the perfect time to call people on the West Coast at 9 and 10 Eastern times because it was, whatever 7 or 6 West Coast time. So call coaches, call kids West Coast time. So I'd go back for like an hour after class, probably 9, 10, 10:30, and then I'd go home, make my peanut butter and jelly, sleep on with my 3 roommates, and then do it all again the next day. So I did that for 2 years. Really, it's just that schedule. And, part of it is being disciplined. Like, I think I've always been disciplined. It wasn't really a culture shock. It was just like, okay, this is what I got to do to make it in this profession. Cause I just went in open minded and like just willing to learn and listen. And that's what, the other assistants were doing. That's what they told me
Right.
to do. That's what my head coach at the time wanted. And, I just did that. And, it paid off after a few years and I learned a lot and I was able to, one thing I learned is like, and I think your other guest said this is like, your title doesn't matter. That's
Mhm.
probably where I learned that is like, yeah, I was director of operations, and then the second year I was graduate managers, which allowed me to compliance wise get on the court and work out with guys. So I just the title didn't matter. If I
Right.
I was able to watch video and see if a kid was good or recruit was good. I was able to do all the travel. I was able to work guys out. I was able to learn about academics. I was doing all of these or wearing all these hats, but even with the title of operations or graduate manager. So that stuff doesn't matter. I think a lot of people get caught up in like titles and assistant coach, this, that. Like just do it all. Just do as much as your boss or your program allows you to do and have experience and all that. And that's gonna, allow you to for the next opportunity.
Right. And I think, you talked about title doesn't matter. And I think that's a big thing, being coming from being a graduate assistant. It was really, you were doing everything. You were recruiting,
That's it.
especially at the Division 3 level. So, I really want to get into, obviously you're at the Division 1 level. You were coaching and, playing at the Division 3 level. Can you talk a little bit about what differences you see in both levels, both in the job, but then also just everything else?
Yeah, I think my experience was unique because the two Division 3 programs I've been associated with, it, Guilford and Williams, were high level programs. So like even at the time, like my college coach, who ended up being a student assistant for, he was the athletic director of the program. So we got what we needed, and
Right.
we were we were able to win at the level which we did because we had the resources and we had the commitment, not only from him but from the school, and they wanted us to win, so they gave us what we needed. What are the strong Division 3 programs doing? We're going to do that too. So that was really thankful. And then Williams just had a ton of history and tradition, right? So you're from New England, like you talk about like Dave Paulson, who's now Holy Cross. You talk about who left Williams to go to Bucknell and went to George Mason. You got Mike Maker, who won a bunch of games. Coach Duncan Robinson, lost in the national championship game. He moved on to another job. The boss that I work for, Kevin Knapp, he's already been to a Final Four. He's 38, going in his 10th year. He's been to a Final Four, a couple championships. Like, so there's just been this huge history of coaches that have come there, and that's just the head coaches. Like Williams is also a tree full of assistant coaches that have gone on to do great things as well. So, it was a place I knew I wanted to be a part of. I knew about the tradition and the history and the success of the program. I knew how great of a school it was, but I also knew that, long term, that I'd be in a family in a tree that was, can ultimately, help me for the rest of my career. And all those guys have been great to me. And, just to name a few, like Will Hardy, the head coach of the Utah Jazz, like, he's a Williams alum. Josh Leffler, who, the head coach of Loyola, Maryland, he's an assistant at Williams. So like there's just guys sprinkled everywhere across the country, like that have helped me, navigate this profession. But to answer your question, is like the biggest difference is like obviously the scholarships is the number one easy thing to point to, but just the amount of time we have at the Division 1 level, like Division 3, and even in the Ivy League, we didn't have summer school, we didn't have summer class, we didn't have summer practice. We do here at Loyola. Preseasons, you only get a certain amount of hours. I think our start date for practice at Williams was November 1st. Like, we're practicing here September, whatever, 20th. Like, so, just the amount of time you have with the guys, the amount of hours is the biggest difference between Division 1, Division 3, the scholarships, the time, and obviously the resources.
Yeah, and I think, last year I remember on October 15th, everyone was like, "Let's go! First day,
Yeah.
first practice." And
Yeah.
so, obviously Division 1, you guys,
It's
that day
like,
is way earlier in the year,
this is practice 50 at that point.
right? So,
So,
something I want to touch on, obviously you talked about the connections you made, and also the tree you had at Williams. How much are you, leaning on that tree? How much are you talking to those guys? Like, yeah, let me pick your brain on this. What does that look like for you?
yeah, pretty frequently. Like, um, I think people when people think of mentors and people to look up to, you're always I think most people think like people above you, like, oh, I want to be a Division 1 assistant. Let me go reach out to some Division 1 assistants or a head coach or whatever, Division 3 head coach. I'm gonna reach out to some head coaches. But really, like, a lot of your mentors, and you don't like, you're learning from the people you work with the most, right? Like, so, if there's another assistant at Mass Bay, or there's another assistant at Williams, or those are the people you talk to, text, spend time with, in the trenches. Like, but you're also learning from them too. Like, they have strengths and weaknesses. You're trying to problem solve together, trying to work together. So, I've known that pretty early, is like, because assistants were really good to me, just like, hey, do this, don't do that, like, try this, try that. And so I'm like, man, I'm learning from this guy. Like, you have the most access to the people that are your peers. Not necessarily, you might not always have the access to the head coach, or people in the other programs. So I learned that early. I was very fortunate to do that and learn that. And then to answer your question, I was at Williams probably a week ago. So, to answer, point blank of, how much communication I have with those guys, like Coach App was, one of the best bosses I've had, and just a great coach, a great guy, just really really thoughtful, really balanced person. Like, he works really hard, he works really smartly, intentionally. Great coach, family man. Like, he just checked all these boxes. And we're very different personality wise, but we work really well. And anything comes up, I text him about. If it's a interview for some head coaching opportunities, the first person I'm texting is Coach App, or Coach Leffler at Loyola, Maryland, or any of those guys. Like, as soon as I say, like even texting Will Hardy, I can text him right now and he's going to respond like, "Hey, Justin, what's going on? What do you need?" Like, that family, that bond is something that, it's important for any coach to maintain as you continue to navigate the profession. It's just the people you've worked with, the assistants, the head coaches you used to work for, just maintaining those relationships and those bonds, is because it's going to help you somewhere down the road.
Right. And you're talking about relationships, and obviously not just basketball, but sports as a whole. They're so important. So, can you just talk about, obviously in recruiting, relationships are so important. Can you talk a little bit about your recruiting philosophy, and how you go about recruiting athletes?
Yeah, that's a great. I was reading
Big
that question
question.
last night. My philosophy is my boss's philosophy. So so that's changed depending on where I've worked. But um, what I try to do, and I take a lot of pride in. I know a lot of this podcast is I've been able to work different levels, different places, different regions. Like, I take a lot of pride in that, and I think that's something that I was really intentional about is be working on the West Coast, working in New England, working in the South, working Division 3, working Division 1, like high major, low major. Like that's something I take pride in. So I have a wide perspective of like what um, you know who you can recruit, what fits a certain place, what fits your boss, what fits the institution. Like, you got to get really specific when recruiting to the Ivy League. You got to get really specific when recruiting to North Carolina Central. Like, those aren't the same pools. And then it's a different pool than Loyola. So, I'm proud that I can navigate like both of those worlds and a lot of different worlds and levels. And um, I I specifically look for, and I think this can carry wherever you go is just like the two things are like the talent plus intangibles. So those are things I like always look for when you're evaluating just the basketball piece. Is like, all right, what is this like? How is this person's talent gonna translate to what you guys do in your program? So
Gotcha.
whether it's shooting, whether it's defense, rebound, like whatever it is, like, okay, what can he do right now? Where can we get him when he gets to campus? And then the intangible piece is like, okay, what else does he do outside of make shots or rebound the basketball? It's like, is he an expert communicator? Is he a really selfless individual? Is he a great student? Is he super hard worker? Like, there's other things that are important, but the talent's always going to be first. The intangibles are going to be second, and depending on the job where I'm at, like I'm gonna make sure he's a great student, make sure the family's great, make sure there's a lot of factors that go into it. But those are the two things where I'm starting.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And so, you're talking about obviously, and I think it's a great point. Your philosophy is your boss's philosophy.
Right.
How has that changed? Obviously, you know, your school, the school you're at, obviously Loyola University of Chicago.
Yeah.
How has the philosophy changed? With the introduction of the transfer portal, and obviously the everyone's kind of jumping in and out. What does that kind of look like for you guys?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think it's something that we're all still figuring out as coaches. Like, yes, we have a plan. Yes, we're a couple years into the portal. Yes, we've gotten great transfers. Yes, people have transferred out. Not only here when I was at Seattle, where, even a couple people left when I was at Dartmouth. Like, they got that degree first, but they still transfer. So this isn't a new, I think the portal isn't new. Like, being able to transfer isn't new. It's the immediate eligibility associated with the portal, and then it's the introduction of NIL in 2021. So I think those two things together has made this, the college profession just a lot more difficult than it's been. It's something that we're always discussing. It's something that, whether it's, hey, here's a great high school player at, Rivers Rivers School, like, it's yeah, but there's a great transfer too. So it's something that, it's a constant conversation with new players, but it's also a constant conversation with, a lot of people don't talk about the retention of your players. Like, that's, the portal and NIL is really about retention to me, than it is about recruitment. It's, you think you do a good job getting guys to your place and campus, but are they having a great experience? Are they being taken care of? Are they developing? That's what's gonna, make them stay, versus, you know, searching for other opportunities. So it's become a lot more difficult. But why I got in this profession is because it's not a, you show up and you know what you're gonna get like every single day type job. It's a, you wake up, you check your phone, and there's no fires going on, so you're like, all right, I'm ready to attack the day and figure out how to navigate, my job and, help. That's why you have a staff. That's why you have a boss. Like, hey, what about this? What about this? What about that? And we do it together. So
Awesome. Awesome. So I want to get off recruiting now because obviously, we could talk about recruiting for an hour.
sure.
So really just want to know. Obviously, you're at the Division 1 level. What does a regular day look like? Obviously, they're all different.
Yeah.
But, during the season, what does a day look like?
Yeah.
During the year.
Yeah, I'll talk about Loyola and Seattle. My last job is so here we practice typically around like 2 o'clock. We have a slot like 2 to 5. We may use that, we may not, and but that's our practice slot. So our guys will typically go to class in the morning, or they'll also get an individual workout for probably 20 minutes or so, and that's optional. Like, hey, text us if you'd like to, work out, get some shots up, watch some film, or whatever they need. That's their time to get what they need. Is in the mornings, and that's with the coach. So every single day, get a text like, "Hey, does 11 work? Does 10 work with the my skill group?" And um, then around that, I'll start working on whatever scouts that are coming up for that week. We'll meet. We'll obviously meet on recruiting at some point, typically daily. And then again, it's just connecting with your staff, what's needed, what's coming up, who do we have any visits coming up? Let's talk about that. Let's talk about this team we're playing. Say we're playing UMass, and hey, what do they like to do? How are we gonna uh, compete against that or something like that. And then practice comes. We may watch a little bit of film with the team, go to practice, and then after, it's just checking in and talking to your guys. It's some guys want to stay late, some guys want to shoot some free throws, some guys want to, get up 10, 15 minutes of extra shots and then go home and I watch practice again, just trying to get a second eyes on what we just did and clip up specific film for the guys to show them the next day, and then just kind of keep it rolling. And that's just what is going to happen. So there's something
Right.
else that can come.
So
With
busy day. Okay. So obviously during the year, you know, sounds like you have busy days, and obviously you have student managers who are around helping out. So first, just want to know like how important are student managers and graduate assistants to your program, and then obviously want to get some tips after that. But just talk about like what student managers and graduate assistants are doing with you guys.
Man, it's they're doing a lot. Like they have one of the most, we try to show thanks to them as much as we can because um, everyone on this staff at Loyola has been in support staff or graduate assistants or managerial roles. Like we have a guy who ended up walking on at Kansas, but he started out as a manager. We have our associate head coach was a manager at Michigan State. Our, Drew Valentine, our head coach, was a GA at Michigan State. So like our whole staff is built on guys. You keep going down the line. Our director of ops was a manager here, or one of our other assistant coaches played here and then was a GA at Tennessee. So, our whole staff is that's our roots in coming up that way in our profession. So, we did it. We know how important, or we didn't know at the time how important we were, but we know now. We had a big role in a big part of running the program successfully as we did. And, we try to take care of those guys. Here, we're really fortunate. We've got like 10 guys that are here all the time. Yeah, we got 10 managers that are all the time ready to go, not just for practice, for, if I'm doing a workout with the player, we have a manager's chat. Hey, can anyone help out with the workout? Like, there's always someone there. Like, so I don't have to go sprinting across the court. Guys aren't making shots. Like,
Right.
I don't got to go sprinting across the court. The managers are helping us out. So, Yeah, we're they're really important to our success here. They're really important to our program. They're here just as much, if not more, than us. They're doing the laundry. They're at practice. They're setting up practice. They're cleaning down practice. So, they do the film. They make sure we have the film. So they help this machine run, and a lot of our success would be credited to them.
Right. And I wish we had 10 managers.
I know. Me too. I've been there.
Right. So can you just can you give any tips or a piece of advice to any like current athletes or managers who like they know they want to be at that next level, they know that they want to coach. Can you just give any tips or words of advice for them?
Yeah, I think a few things. Like, I think a lot of people talk about like who you know is important. Like, and reality is like who knows you, right? Like a lot of people, right? Like Greg Popovich, and that's an extreme example. JJ Redick, whatever, the Earl Grant at Boston College. Like those guys, but if you were to walk by them on the street or at a clinic or whatever it is, do they know who you are? That's important as well, because there's a lot of great things that you do, like for yourself. Like, you worked at different levels, you've got different experiences, you've got this great podcast, you're doing all these things, but like people have to know that. Like, and that's kind of like, it's a fine line between like self-serving and promoting and just being like, hey, like I'm really trying to be in this profession. I'm really want to grow and learn and connect and do this long term. So, here's what I've done. So just making sure people know that, not being afraid to put things out there. And then just always be open minded, because everything is not what it seems, right? Like, it's like, yes, Loyola is a great city, great school, history, pedigree, like checks a lot of boxes. But there's some things that, like, there are challenges and there are struggles, and that's every job I've ever had. Like, there's a million great things about Loyola, but there's like five that you don't know and no one knows that. But I know, because I'm here every day. So, and that's the same with Williams, and that's the same with Dartmouth, and Seattle. We won a lot of games, but it's there are challenges, but just keep an open mind. Always try to bring value to the place you're at. Like, that's probably the number one thing, is like, what value are you bringing? And that, hopefully, your boss isn't saying this is your value, but you got to evaluate yourself, is be your own toughest critic. Like, all right, what value am I bringing to whatever school I'm working at? Like, whether you're in a manager role, whether GA, assistant coach, like, okay, and how can I expand that? So, okay, yes, this is what I'm doing, and now how can I expand it? And it's not going to go from GA to running the offense. It's what we all want to do. It's going to be, hey, I'm showing up every day. I'm consistent. I'm reliable. I'm a great communicator. That's what I do well. The next thing I do is I'm really great with the guys. I'm always available to work them out. The next thing is, hey, I want to help out in scouting. What does that look like? Maybe I just cut all the film. The next thing is this, and then, hey, I'm helping out with the defense. Then I'm helping out. Like, so it's just a gradual build, and then over time, you're like, you have a story to say, because now you're saying, I've worked with players. I've done this. I've done recruiting. I've recruited at Springfield College. I've recruited at Mass Bay. I've recruited. I coached a little bit of defense. I help out with the offense. I help the assistant coach with the scouts. Now I'm running the scouts. Like, it just starts to build over time. But don't try to jump to from point A to point Z
Mhm.
in a year or two. Just keep gradually building and building your skills and being open minded. And I think that's something I've done, but any advice that I would give to somebody else.
Yeah, and I think it's a great point because, like for me at Springfield, I was trying to build in terms of obviously learning as much as I can, but also trying to be the best leader that I could be.
For sure.
So really just want to talk to you about how do you continue developing as a leader? Like, is there anything you look at, anything you listen to? Obviously, because coaches are leaders, and so how do
Yeah.
so how do you kind of go about building your leadership?
Yeah. That's a great question. We sort of, you get thrusted, you go from player to director of operations, and now I'm a leader. So it's, or you go from, whatever to assistant coach, and I'm a bigger leader. Like it's something that just gets thrown upon you, and you kind of have to continuously develop your skills. And again, I think that starts with being um, open-minded. I think that starts with being your own toughest critic. It's just to be a lifelong learner. Just always don't think you figured it out, because once you think you figured it out is when, like, you realize you ain't got it figured out. So, and whether that's like, oh, this team's good, I know this team, and then the next day someone quits the team and you're like, man, what? So always humble yourself and do it. It takes a lot of intrinsic motivation, because you're not always going to have somebody to hold your hand. You're not always going to have somebody that gives you honest feedback. So give it to yourself, like, hey, this is where I'm good, this is where I'm not. And just keep growing, keep developing. For me, like, I read a good amount, and not necessarily books. I do read books, but I read like a lot of articles. I read like a lot of leadership. um, Twitter's great for finding stuff. Everyone's a leader on Twitter, right? So you read different things, different people, find people you like, talk to other coaches, talk to the people you work with around you, talk to, there are people doing your job, like other, community college coaches, there are other assistant coaches, there are other head coaches, like pick their brains and don't be afraid to ask, like, hey, how would you handle this? What have you done in this situation? Or, hey, this is what we did. What do you think about that? Like, and just keep growing, keep learning. You're going to make mistakes, and then learn from those mistakes, and then just do better the next time. I think leadership is starts intrinsically. Again, it's going to start with you, right? Like, how do you show up to work each day? How do you what's your mindset, what's your attitude, and then from there you'll be able to lead someone else.
Right, right. And so, obviously, you're a leader now. Obviously, you've been a leader throughout your career, but at Loyola University Chicago, you're going into your second season, and just really want to hear about how it was last year, but then also what are you guys looking forward to this year?
Yeah, last year was great. It was the second year in the A10, um, which the first year didn't go so well, and and so we kind of needed to bounce back. So what we did was, I wasn't part of this. They reconstructed a roster that brought in talented players, but piece by piece, we built a team that was going to help us compete. Obviously, we didn't know it'll end up in a championship, but we knew this team. Okay, on paper, we should be able to compete in the Atlantic 10, and gives ourselves a chance to win a championship, because that's like the expectation and standard at Loyola. It's not just to win games and compete, and we want to win championships. Like, we won 23 games. We want, most places you win that 20 wins, and you're like, oh, this is a great year, it's awesome. But, like, in reality, you don't get a banner for that. You don't get a trophy for 20 wins. You don't, like, you know Coach Valentine went from four wins in the A10 to 15 wins, and he didn't get coach of the year. Like, nothing happened when we won 20 wins. Like, so
Which is
we
crazy.
wanted something more. Yeah, nothing happened. Like, it was just like, okay, like, all right, we got practice. What time? 2:30. Okay, cool. So the standard here and has been set by the previous guys and the players that have come through here, going to a Final Four in 2018, going to Sweet 16 in 2021, going to NIT 2019. We went to the NIT last year, so there's been this, like, history of success and tradition here, where it's not only to make it to the tournament, but it's to win a couple games. And so you know that was the standard from day one. We carried that through the entire season, and the guys, as we started momentum, started building, and confidence built, and we ended up having a really good year that we were proud about. So we're expecting the same. Like that, the standard isn't going to change here. Like the years, places that sustain success, places I've been at, North Carolina Central, Williams, and now here that have sustained a lot of success is, that the standard is the standard.
Right.
You've heard that as a coach, and that's not changing. We don't drop the standard because a new group of guys or it's a new year. It's, it keeps raising, quite frankly. So, that's our expectation for this season. We like our team, we like our group. I think we recruited well. It's my job. If not, maybe I'll have a different polo on next year. We think they're good. We think we like them. They're coachable. They're working hard every day. They're learning, and we're excited to start playing some games in a few weeks.
Yeah. And I was gonna say, November 4th is right around the corner. So
Yeah, for sure.
definitely looking forward to seeing you guys, out there. Obviously, wrapping up here. Is there anything else? Any piece of advice? Any words of wisdom you have for student managers, players, graduate assistants, just anybody who's looking to obviously progress within this industry?
Yeah, I think, a lot of things I touched on already is just like, I always talk about this profession as like there's gonna be it's like you're running on a track, and like I don't like to run on a track, but just use that as an example. Just you're running a race, and it's your own race. It's not the race of the guy next to you. It's not, there's two managers, there's two GAs. Like you're not running the same race. You may be at the same place, but you're and along that race, you're gonna get to some hurdles, and you're on the race, and you're like, man, I didn't know there's gonna be hurdles on this track or this, whatever course, and you're gonna get to a hurdle, and that hurdle could be anything. That could be, man, I got to move across the country. That could be, and this job is volunteer. Man, this job also requires me to, work another job on campus or things like that. It's, there's going to be hurdles like, hey, my family lives in this part of the country. This job is here. So, whatever it may be, there are going to be hurdles. That's a guarantee. And you just got to keep hopping over those hurdles, and you can jump over, you can walk around the hurdle, you can crawl underneath the hurdle, but just keep going. And then you'll finally look up and get to a place where you're like, okay, man, all those hurdles, it was worth it. So, I'm not far removed from, the couch surfing and peanut butter and jellies and, having putting $10 in my car to drive to work and hoping I made it, and things like that. Like I'm not that wasn't a long time ago. Like all these jobs I've had, like we haven't talked about it. They weren't well paid jobs. They were jobs, and they looked great. And I made the most of them, and helped the program move forward. But there were a lot of hurdles along the way, and I just kept chugging along, and I'm going to continue to do that.
Yeah, and I think if we want to talk about pay and salary, we could probably talk for another hour.
Sure,
So
man.
that's
And
so we'll
thank
save that
you
one
to my
for sure.
parents' health insurance for as long as I was. Like I think I did it to the last possible day.
Well, Justin, I just want to say, on behalf of everybody tuning in, thank you so much for instilling this wisdom and just talking about your career. I really appreciate it. And make sure you're tuning in to obviously November 4th. They're playing their first game against Chicago State. 7:30. They have an exhibition before, but obviously that's going to be their first game. Um, and if you don't have anything else, Justin, I'll tell everybody and the viewers, tune in next time to the Coach's Carousel.
No, Gus, this was awesome. Thank you so much. Like I really enjoyed this, and obviously this isn't the end of our relationship. So if anything comes up, text me, call me. If anyone needs anything, you can hand out my contact information, and
Sure,
I'm happy to talk to anybody anytime.
for sure. All
All right.
right. Well, we're going to stop recording now, but until next time.
All right. Take care.